there are some basically custom elements in the DITA that are specifically for learning and training content. We based the source files for learningdita.com on that specialization, on those custom elements. And if you are especially considering using DITA content for training content, you could go to the GitHub repository, and like Gretel said, she'll put a link in the program notes so you'll know where to find it. You can go online, you can download those files, and it really shows you how the learning and training specialization can be used, in real life, because we set that up using the specialization, and then that is what we use to transform it into the WordPress stuff. So it's a real live example of how it really can work. And plus, being in GitHub, which is reachable across the web, it's a free open source thing itself. It helps us draw more people into this and see DITA in action. And the more people that see it being used in real life, I think it gives it a leg up. It makes it more real to people when they can see a real life application.
Exactly. It makes it goes from something that's intimidating or difficult to use to something where they can say, oh, here's an actual example of it, and I can take a look at it and study it.
Yeah, and to me, having not just an abstract example is something that helps with learning anything. It doesn't matter what it is. So if you're kind of wondering, hey, would this DITA thing work for my training content, go to the GitHub link, take a look at the files, and you can get an idea of how that structure can support all the different kinds of things in learning. And that's everything from, concepts to lessons to quizzes, all sorts. The specialization can handle a lot of different things, and we've thrown a lot of different content types at it, and so far it's worked pretty well for us.
Yes, it really has.
Yeah.
And it's been a good resource, as well as I was mentioning at first, for people like our customers or just people in the community learning DITA independently, or students to be able to go to this resource and see some DITA in action that maybe was not the easiest thing to do before.
Yeah, and we've talked about all this good stuff with the site, and we probably should tell you it wasn't a completely smooth road to get where we are. There were some bumps along the way, and we're going to share some of those warts and all with you now. So what are some of the things that you remember that we had to address and fix along the way?
Well, I know that when we were first developing the courses, we had to come up with a standard of consistency for how each course was going to be. And of course, that's changed a little bit organically over time, but I know one of the big issues was when we were doing, I think it was our second course, it was our first course on authoring. We kind of realized last minute that we had some hands-on examples, but we didn't have any kind of independent activities. So then we all got into a huge rush to add that at the end, but I think it's been one of the most useful things for our students to have an on-your-own DITA exercise that they can do and put together. But it's things like that when you're first kind of carving out your own path with how you want to do these courses. It's figuring out, okay, how are we going to present this? What kinds of resources are we going to include? How are we going to structure all of our courses in general going forward? And that's, I think, been one of the biggest challenges, especially as we kind of move into more advanced topics, is where something like an authoring course structure doesn't really work anymore. How do we keep the courses consistent and engaging, and make sure they're covering everything they need to cover?
In part, and one other thing that we learned early on, we had it set up where you had to complete one course to then do another, because we had a very specific sequence in mind.
Yes.
From this is the most basic, this is getting a little more specific, and so on. So we wanted to kind of guide people by making courses prerequisites. And our intentions were good.
Yes.
But. However, we had several people point out, well, what if I already know the stuff in these early courses and I want to jump in right, and say, the third or fourth course instead of starting at number one? And that really, we had enough, I guess, pushback on that where I realized, you know what, they're right. And so we chatted amongst ourselves and we decided to basically take away the prerequisites. So we still recommend at the beginning of a course, you need to know this stuff that's presented in these courses, and then you'll be ready to take this one. But we don't enforce it. You don't have to do it in that specific order. You can jump in, at any course you want without having to go back and do the other stuff. And I think that actually may have opened the site up even more, because we weren't forcing people to learn or review stuff that they already knew.
And I think it definitely helps on the business side, because when we've got clients of ours who may already have a foundation in DITA, but they may need to just start with like advanced reuse or